Most of the Annabelles are fine. The first one's was the most disappointing, which is shocking they made another one. But they were all better than Dead Silence. That was the clap. Let's get it, clap.
We're gonna clap. Here is the clap.
It was a monster clap.
But honestly, if we're set up, we can start early.
It's only 10 minutes early, and if we're all here, why not? It's not like...
And it gives everyone else the rest of their night back.
Gives them
Absolutely.
10 minutes of the night.
Give you 10 minutes back.
10 minutes is all you need if you know what you're doing.
It adds up. So Derek's heard the show several times now. He's an expert. So Judge makes the intro, opening statements, exhibits, closing statements, jury deliberation, post-trial analysis. That's the show. So let's get rocking and rolling then, Ben.
Hold on a second, though. I will say that when my turn to speak, I am going to take the cans off because this is jarring.
I mean, that sounds like a you problem. I don't know.
It is a me problem. That's why I'm handling it.
Ben and I are podcast experts. We used to do this in Colorado all the time.
Hearing myself makes me realize I'm stupid.
Now you know our pain. Our pain we live every day.
I don't like it. Neither does Bobby.
Hey, that's not true. He started listening.
Bobby loves the show.
He had a back catalog.
Dylan, do me a favor. Check. Are those levels still working?
Yes.
You can still hear us?
Yes, they're still working.
Okay, we're good.
All
I'm just gun shy after last time. It didn't work.
Yeah, I see them all
it didn't work.
bipping and bopping and zooming.
He is terrible.
Hey, be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Hell on Reels. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus Dead Silence, a 2007 horror movie about a widower trying to unravel the mysterious and creepy doll-related death of his wife. For those of you unfamiliar with our spooky court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of the sin of being a bad movie. If so, it shall be cast for all eternity into the fiery pits of movie hell, upon which this courthouse just so happens to be built.
Very convenient. We got a good price.
Yeah, saves a lot of money. And to that end, Mr. Bangs, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not just representing the prosecution. I'm representing Trailer Trash.
Yeah!
Oh dear.
The show where we watch trailers and we get trashed. Now, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, Dead Silence is a horror film that deals with the unprecedented topic of haunted and possessed ventriloquist dummies. Now, at the time, this bold and innovative notion of a toy coming to life had never been tackled a single time before in the history of motion picture media. Except for 1945's Dead of Night, obviously. But except for that one singular example, this never-before-seen concept revolutionized... and there's 1964's Devil Doll, of course. But that one goes without saying. And that one movie, Magic, with Anthony Hopkins, too. But discounting those three, teensy, weensy, little... Oh, yeah, and Dolls. Oh, and Dolly Dearest. And Trilogy of Terror 1 and 2. And Pinocchio's Revenge. And Making Contact. And Asylum. Poltergeist, Tales from the Hood, Tales from the Crypt, and all 8 Child's Play movies, and the Chucky TV show, 3 Annabelle movies, 14 Puppet Masters, 5 Demonic Toys, 5 Robert the Dolls, and of course Goosebumps, Night of the Living Dummy 1, 2, and 3. But besides those obscure and oft-forgotten instances, there was an absolute dearth of this type of story in the visual medium. Fortunately for us, filmmakers James Wan and Lee Wannell were too brave to leave this void in the genre unfilled. Because Lord knows, when I think of terror, and I mean sheer, pants-shitting terror, I think of something that stands only 3 feet tall and weighs 2.5 pounds. I thank you.
Thank you. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Derek Schlender. Please present your opening statement.
Objection! This guy clearly knows the judge.
I'll allow it.
And I bribed you with beer.
I brought this beer.
You know, for somebody who's repping Trailer Trashed, you went on for so long, I think I sobered up.
Ha!
Impossible.
Honorable members of the jury, Dead Silence is a 1989 Australian psychological thriller film directed by Philip Noyce and starring Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman, and Billy Zane.
Order. Mr. Schlender, we're discussing the James Wan Dead Silence.
That's dead calm.
Your Honor, I request a brief recess so I may sit on the swing and consult my legal team via Flintstone phone.
Yabba dabba doo, I like consoling with you.
Well, what you guys didn't hear is that this is actually 3 hours later. Mr. Schlender, please continue with your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, presented before you is without a doubt the easiest case I will either try or stand trial for this week. The question isn't whether Dead Silence is a good movie, but rather to what extent it is a good movie. To what degree does a plot need coherency in order to progress? How strong does the acting need to be in order to provide the impetus for sympathy and concern? What level of lighting and sound design are required to aid in the execution of any movie, let alone a horror movie? Now, even as I ask these questions, your minds begin thinking of possible answers and parallels where the execution was flawed, the movie itself was anywhere from serviceable fun and enjoyable trash to actually pretty good when you think about it. Over the course of this case, it will fall to you, the jury, to decide where on the spectrum of good Dead Silence lands, because it certainly, empirically, emphatically, is not a bad movie.
Thank you.
We'll see.
Well, that's why we're all here.
It's an audio
To be
recording,
fair.
so I guess we'll hear.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Mr. Bangs, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to start with the monster of this film, James Wan.
What?
No, I'm talking about Mary Shaw. And she is this convoluted amalgamation of ideas. She's the ghost of a murdered ventriloquist. Rightfully murdered, by the way, as she did kill children. So maybe it's more appropriate to say she was executed. Who can still control her old dummies through possession to do her bidding and commit murder. That's not so bad of an idea. It's a fun play on the killer toy trope. And if this movie focused on that idea, it may have worked out as a decent popcorn horror movie. Yes, the dummy scares would have all felt very familiar and probably not had much impact on anyone not suffering from automatonophobia. It's the fear of figures that look like humans.
Oh, that's what Ryan has.
Maybe. He might have pediophobia. It's the fear of dolls.
Oh.
And probably the audience would have rolled their eyes like, yeah, Night of the Living Dummy hasn't been scary since I was 8 years old. But it would have had focus. But that's not all Mary is. When she was executed, she was forced to scream so they could cut her tongue out. So now she can also return, and if you scream, she can cut your tongue out. So you have to avoid screaming at all costs, because that's basically your only way to kill you. That wouldn't have been too bad either. Kind of a Candyman thing, supernatural revenge angle, even though in this case, Mary, again, actually was a murderer. But needing to keep from screaming would have worked in several sequences if they could have kept their focus on that. It worked for the Tingler. But instead, they basically mashed the two up, and neither idea is really fleshed out very well. And then they add into the mix that if she steals your tongue, she also can steal your voice, despite the fact your voice does not come from your tongue. It comes from your vocal cords vibrating inside your larynx, and also despite the fact that she's a ventriloquist and not an impersonator. Throwing your voice is a very different talent from mimicking others. So they throw way too many ideas up on the screen, hoping one will stick, but all just ooze right off the screen and plop on the floor.
Mr. Schlender, I'd like you to respond to this Mary Shaw accusation. Do they stick or do they plop?
Plop.
Plop,
Plop.
fizz, fizz. I had the antidote for Maynard's answer.
What a relief it is.
So very famously, as Maynard has hinted, there were script problems from day one. Now, this was, I believe they said it was almost like a mercenary thing. Saw was just coming out, and they weren't sure if they were going to get another paycheck. The studio wasn't exactly
When you say
thrilled.
they,
James Wan and Lee
Wannell? Maybe it's
Yeah.
Lay.
that's a
but
fake
Well,
name.
no.
Order in the court.
Well, Lee Wannell had a blog post where he was complaining about
The man's name is Wannell?
Yes, Wannell, they called him after that blog post.
The blog post was in 2011, and
Yes.
it's entitled Dud Silence,
Yes.
The Hellish Experience of Making a Bad Horror Film.
But,
All right, please continue.
So he's getting to, which I think will probably, and I don't want to step on it too much because I think he's getting to a bigger argument here about the process of it.
Yeah, let's just focus on Mary Shaw. He was saying
so
too
the
many
Mary Shaw
powers,
lore
yeah.
was a product of a lot of studio input rewrites. They were saying the villain needs more rules, the villain needs more rules, the villain needs more rules. And in that blog post, he very famously says, only a studio would ask you something as stupid as to provide rules to a magic monster. So, yes, it doesn't all work. Does it make for some pretty interesting visuals, at least? No. It does. I mean, like, seeing, like, the barbed tongue come out made of other tongues is pretty neat. And by putting an emphasis on so much tongue action, they were able to make the movie delightfully tongue-in-cheek. So yes, the monster laws are a little wonky in context of the real world, but I think in defense of the movie, once they establish a lot of their lore, they don't really break from it. So you may not like it, but within the confines of the establishment of the film, it's just a vehicle for creepy imagery, and you got to have dead people speak to the live people, otherwise they don't get from scene to scene.
It is just a vehicle. It is a Pinto, and it is breaking down. But I do want to follow up because yes, I did my own research into that, and yes, there is that blog post. Winnell, the writer, describes it as creativity at gunpoint. And basically,
I bet he still cashed the check though.
Oh, I'm sure he did. But yeah, it was before Saw actually hit big theaters. It was supposed to be a fallback film they pitched him. And they had no idea of what to make, so he locks himself up trying to write something. And I don't think he had an idea, but whatever his original idea may have been, script doctors get to it, the producers get to it, and they dig their claws into it. And basically, it's too many cooks in the kitchen. Ends up really screwing it up, and that... one of my points, thank you for making it. Defense is that there were too many cooks in the kitchen, and they screwed up what could have been a good thing, but that's not the movie we got. But what I do want to follow up, an important point you made up, rules. Rules are important. I've always believed in rules. Ask anyone who knows me. Big on rules.
You really want us to ask them?
Yes.
Let's call your parole officer.
Ryan Luis Rodriguez. So... in the end, we have this very confused monster that isn't really sure what it wants to be, and I disagree with the defense. Even the movie doesn't know what its rules are. Can Mary only interact with the physical world while possessing one of her dolls, as we see her do in several sequences? At the end, they're trying to destroy her dolls. She seems to need to live through the perfect doll at a moment. Seemingly no, because we have another sequence where we see the spirit of Mary herself kill Henry the Mortician by just making him scream. She seemingly doesn't need a doll at all. She can seemingly exist outside of it. So even if we did destroy all the dolls, like we see in the ending of this film, she seemingly would still be able to go around killing people as just a ghost. Now, does Mary have to make you scream? Or is any scream acceptable? Donnie Wahlberg screams because he's falling, not because of Mary, but that seems to count. So, like, what does Mary define as a scream? Would a shout count? Or yelling? Or what if I just holler? Would a very loud gasp count? Or is it merely about your proximity to one of her dolls or her ghosts? They don't go into how she got any of these powers, nor what her rules are. I mean, it's not like she's a witch with some pact with the devil, or had access to black magic to create a curse. She's just a child murdering puppeteer / doll maker.
All right, so Mr. Schlender, are the rules there? Are they followed? Or is, like Mr. Banks saying, that they don't even really know themselves?
Well, no, there's definitely merit in a few of his arguments there. The big thing that my takeaway was, it was a proximity to a doll issue. I agree that scene where she's coming out of all the dolls was probably just thrown in so they could show her coming out of dolls, because that's the only part of the movie where that happens. In terms of where she needs to be in order to kill someone, there's a few times where people gasp but cover their mouths. So I think it's much like trying to sneak a kiss at a rave. It is proximity to an open mouth.
Yeah! Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
This is why I don't go to raves with you anymore.
Well. No, now we just stay home. So,
He still tries to sneak kisses.
I always have to steal my kisses from you. So yeah, and again, a lot of that does come from probably too many cooks in the script doctoring department. Is it enough to really take me out of the movie? No. Is the initial concept that if you're close to her and you scream, she's going to steal your tongue? Do they make that very clear? Yes. Is that really the only thing that matters in a movie like this? That's up to the jury, but I say, yes, it's a simple premise, and every time we start seeing them try and twist it and get a little more complex, I think that's the script doctoring. But it's not enough for me to. It doesn't pull me out of the movie because I just.
See, but I disagree.
It's so simple.
It's not a simple concept. She could have just been a ghost puppeteer who kills through possession of her dummies, or she could have just been a ghost that steals your voices with tongues. I bet that's how it started.
Probably.
Because it was just called Silence, and I think it was just about, here's a ghost that steals your voice and your tongue if you scream, so you can't scream. That's not a bad idea. It kind of falls on that darkness falls, lights out, strict rule for a monster. That stuff works. I like monsters with rules. And the fact that she has all of these gimmicks is just too many things going on for her in one monster.
But is it enough to really tank it as an
Let's see what the
enjoyable movie
jury
monster?
decides.
I respectfully don't think it is.
All right, so Mary Shaw, very well covered by both of you. Thank you. If there's a next point you'd like to bring up, Mr. Maynard?
Oh, absolutely. Now, unfortunately, even though the ghost of Mary Shaw is a muddled mess, she's also the best part of this movie. We don't know a lot about her, but what little we know is more than we know about anyone else, because to refer to the other characters as one-dimensional is an insult to one-dimensional characters. First, there's our hero, Jamie. He's some guy. Happens to be an ancestor of one of the people who executed Mary. Rightfully, I reiterate. What does Jamie do for work? That doesn't matter. Whatever it is, apparently he has some great bereavement leave saved up. Then we have his...
You save up bereavement leave?
You should. Otherwise, I've got a dead relative every week.
Easy when you're unemployed.
Then we have his pretty, secretly pregnant wife, Lisa. As the way Jamie refers to her as Lisa. Even Jamie doesn't know she's pregnant, but the ghost of Mary Shaw finds out somehow and kills her in the first 10 minutes. So, sorry, Lisa, you were just a plot device. Next, we have Diamond, Donnie Wahlberger. He's a cop. He's very cop-like. Has all the attributes you might associate with a cop. A gun, a badge, an electric razor he's constantly shaving himself with because he's such a busy cop. He has to shave on the run. Wow, so busy. Such cop. Plus, a prop can sometimes fill in where the screenwriters forgot to add personality. So, did I mention he's a cop? Oh, and then there's Jamie's estranged invalid father, who is obviously a ventriloquist dummy from the moment you see him. He has a little bow tie. His mouth moves sort of directly up and down. He has a brand new wife that Jamie's never met or heard of, who is always standing directly behind him when he's speaking. Like he's obviously a dummy. So let's just skip past that. Maybe the defense wants to be smart and just pretend that whole thing didn't happen.
Would you like to address the deficiencies of the non-Mary Shaw characters?
There are some things I actually kind of want to mention that scene with the father a little later. I have a completely different take on it, but I do think the characters are intentionally supposed to be this way. The movie is even with the extended cut, it's only 90 minutes. Now,
no complaints there.
This is a very paint by numbers horror movie in a lot of ways. How much of that is because of the script doctoring or just they weren't completely in it? That's fine, because I have seen so many worse movies that have done a worse job with it. And how much time do you really want to drill down on these? This is a summer popcorn movie where it's like, it is a rainy day and it's on TV, you watch it. And there is a place for those kind of movies. This isn't like a Scorsese film, You're going into a rushed product, admittedly, but the characters do serve narrative purpose enough to get to the next scene, and that's all they're there for. So asking them to be something that they're very clearly not, I get that would be really nice, and it would elevate the movie from good to possibly great. But the way it is now, it's good enough to progress a 90-minute popcorn thriller movie.
Well, you're right that they serve narrative purpose because, there has to be a guy who's tormented by the ghost, and that's our protagonist. But we could have cut the whole father's a dummy thing and added 5 minutes anywhere, and then made us know something about this guy, except for the fact that he was married and loses his wife. And besides that, we don't know
Several
anything.
wives.
I think he only lost.
The father lost the wives. The son lost the
son won.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the father at that point.
I don't care much about knowing about the father. It's fine if he's an object because he is literally dead the entire time. So I get that. But our main protagonist, Ryan Quantine, help me
True
out.
Blood.
Help me out. Ryan Quantin.
Ryan
Quantin of Solace.
He's Australian. That's why he was saying Lisa.
No solace in this film whatsoever. But just I'm hoping a little bit more from our main characters. At least our main character. At least him. At least if I had a reason to root for him. But I don't care. Again, I care a lot more about Mary Shaw, who I also just wish was more realized.
All right. Then it's still... The ball's still in your court, Mr. Maynard?
Your Honor, these characters aren't just flat and undefined. They also happen to be the real dummies in this movie. Diamond Donnie Wahlberg is in charge of investigating the death of Lisa.
Enough of his Donnie Wahlberg bashing.
His chief suspect is, of
You
course...
can object whatever you want.
His chief suspect is, of course, Jamie.
I get cross.
Though I'm sure the takeout place could have provided a pretty solid alibi, but Jamie tells the cop right to his face, why do I need an alibi? Well maybe because everyone's going to think you killed your wife. And, like, there has to be receipts and security footage and anything to get you off the hook, but nobody cares. But it doesn't matter, because Donnie Wahlberg was too busy to have checked these alibis, because he's got to shave on the run. That's how busy he is. Did I mention that? So busy. No time for checking alibis. But apparently, he tells Jamie not to leave the city, and then when his murder suspect directly disobeys him and leaves the city, does Donnie follow him and arrest him? No! And when he catches his chief murder suspect burying, and I quote, evidence in a capital crime, unquote, that's the dummy, Billy, that gets mailed to them, evidence that Donnie never felt compelled to collect and file earlier in the film, by the way.
He was busy!
Does Donnie arrest him then? No! Donnie is the biggest dummy in this whole movie, and maybe that explains why what he says sometimes doesn't match up with the way his mouth moves. But he's not the only dummy. When Jamie and Lisa get the doll in the mail, they immediately give us an exposition dump and acknowledge being familiar with the story of Mary Shaw. Jamie goes on to say it's a local legend in our hometown and that it's believed the dummy brings death to those around them. So when they receive this doll in the mail, do they ever try and throw it away? No! They prop it up and play with it and pose it. Because that's what I do with a bad omen, right? And once Jamie finds out that Mary Shaw is actually real and she can actually kill you if you scream, does he say, duct tape his mouth shut for the rest of the movie? No! I wish. We all wish, but he's too stupid. In fact, the whole damn town is too stupid. If you lynch a child murderer, good for you, by the way, but maybe, just maybe, don't honor their last fucking wishes and transform their corpse into a doll. Maybe don't bury all their stupid fucking dolls either. Maybe just burn them because she's like a child murderer. Also, maybe search her home or her theater for the puppetized corpse of small children. Do a spot check. Take 15 for Christ's sake. Even Mary Shaw is stupid. Like she has a blood feud with this entire town. She wants to kill every single living ancestor who killed her. Why hasn't she done it? It's not that big a town. It shouldn't take 50 years. She seemingly has little trouble tracking down people who leave Raven's Fair, like Jamie. The longer you wait, Mary, the more there is to do. Just get over it and kill everybody. And with that, prosecution rests.
Very impassioned. Thank you, Mr. Bangs. Let's see here.
Don't I get a...
You do. I'm gonna kick
that's
it
the
to you.
end of the trial.
Yes, I'm
Well, no, don't I get a...
You do, but I have a line that I kick it to you.
No, but... don't I get to...
you can do
Make
that.
an objection then.
No, because I get like, what is it, a cross-examination of evidence.
No.
Is it
Sure,
back and forth?
yeah.
You get to
Yeah.
present your case.
You
now.
can talk
No,
about whatever you want.
because the
It's
things
not a
he
real
said,
court.
I know. But I would
Sits
just
around
like to
drinking
say,
beer. It's not real.
Where was Mary Shaw? She was clearly busy perfecting the perfect doll, and then she was busy talking to the tourism board because they don't have a business for that small failing mannequin town unless the ghost of Mary Shaw gets some action every couple of years.
That's true. But
It's
objection.
the town from Scooby-Doo.
Seemingly, I looked it up, and Mary Shaw apparently made the perfect doll before she died.
There's no way she could have.
But that's the synopsis.
Those
I
are
read
facts not
online.
in evidence, not in the film. Facts not in evidence. Objection. Facts not in evidence.
It's not
Calls for speculation.
It's not. It does call for speculation.
Yeah,
so
but
we'll
so
let the
did mine.
jury.
There's actually,
we'll let
I
the
will
jury
say,
speculate.
to introduce, there is a whole alternate deleted scene that suggests that it's her spirit.
Yeah,
that
when she
ends up
knocks him
taking
out,
over.
but it never
Yeah.
made it into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But
Okay.
again,
But then
facts not in
Deleted
evidence.
scene though.
Facts
So
not in
anyway,
evidence.
the prosecution has rested their case. Mr. Slender, you may present your first exhibit. See, that's what we do.
You're damn right. This is what I do.
Are you having my beer? Or are you opening
that's his
for
Well,
me?
it was your
Yeah, it's
beer,
too
Your
late.
Honor.
You're too yeah, Your Honor, you're too slow. So anyways,
Hey, easy there in the jury. You'll get your spirits when you go into the deliberation room. But in the meantime, Mr. Prosecutor, if you would.
all right, fair enough. My first piece for the defense is I would like to discuss the anatomy of a scene, right? What exactly we need from scenes in a movie like this.
Okay.
So, scenes do three things mainly. They develop characters, they do a little bit of world building, they progress the plot, and if we're lucky, they will foreshadow a future event. So, let's talk about the scene the prosecution brought up where he meets his father. We see Jamie comes from wealth, so that puts his apartment living into perspective. We know there must be friction with his father. He's greeted by a stepmother he's never met, and that somewhat is a dark mirror to his own recent loss of his own wife and partner. And the whole time, she's saying the father is a changed man. And of course, Jamie doesn't believe that.
He was a changed man.
Yes, exactly.
He was a doll.
Well, she told him then right out. She told him as much. He just didn't want to hear
The
it.
kind of bad jokes this movie makes.
So when he arrives upstairs, he sees his father, a man whose legacy as a bad dad still looms large over our hero. When the new wife pulls the oxygen mask off, the father does not move, does not blink, does not respond, not until she puts her hand behind him. And she also masks that motion by putting her hand on his shoulder, but it is still within frame. Suddenly he comes to life, and we have a conversation not only about their strained relationship, but we also uncover more about the legend of Mary Shaw that grips this small town.
It's an exposition dump, Your Honor.
It
Objection.
is, but hold on, it's accomplishing these several tasks. So even though the acting's weak, right, it at least
It's
is...
wooden.
It's a... Yes. I can't
Don't
even take
be a
it this
dummy,
long to do
prosecution.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So even though the acting is admittedly not the strongest in any movie, the scene follows the tenets of what a good scene is supposed to do. We learn more about Jamie, we learn more about his relationship with his father, we learn more about Raven's Fair, we learn about a little bit of the mythology of Mary Shaw, and we foreshadow that is something wrong with the father, and it also sets up the all-important Don't Scream, which plays out immediately in the next scene in the hotel, Holiday Inn.
But it is just an exposition jump, and that's one of the things the screenwriter complained about when the script doctors took over, is that they made things so complicated that it was necessary to exposition dump.
See, for me, the exposition dump was more so when we're talking to anyone at the funeral home.
That's another one.
This felt much more like an organic scene. So it accomplishes all the tenets that a scene is supposed to do, and it does it well enough, and it does it like inside of like 6 minutes, right? So my first piece of evidence then would be, it's a pretty good scene, and it has good and pretty good, ergo can't be bad.
You said it was good. I'll let it go.
We'll let the jury decide. Though.
Yeah, it's
I
up to
mean,
the jury. I'm just saying, from my point of view, it accomplishes everything scenes are supposed to do, and there's a lot of modern movies that fail to do any
And
of
from
those
my
things.
point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, stop saying that.
There's an argument to be made for that.
All right. If you'd like to present another point, Mr. Slender.
Yes, I would like to say that the movie is intentionally tongue-in-cheek, a joke we made earlier. I don't think any part of this movie was meant to be taken seriously.
We said the same thing about *Malignant*.
Yeah, but this one is pretty obvious.
Order in the court.
Well, this one's pretty obvious. Yeah, I believe that Ryan said something about *Malignant* during the *Malignant* case. He said that you are hysterically laughing at James Wan during this movie, and I believe that is exactly the point. I think it's around the 15-minute mark if you want to check your own episode, but I'm pretty sure that it's around there.
How dare you cite precedents in this courtroom?
That's how precedence works. So, I mean, there's a lot about it that I think is intentionally funny. You were ranting about Donnie Wahlberg. I mean, he enters...
Diamond Donnie Wahlberg, please.
Triple diamond Donnie Wahlberg eats a delectable donut. Descending stairs. So, I mean, he starts. That's what he does. Is he comes. His first thing on scene is he's eating a donut, and then he immediately starts shaving, and you can tell like it's just so cheesy, and it can't. There's no way you can write that much cheese without being self-aware, and he does it. I mean, it does it to the point like as we point out like. when he dies, we don't even focus on his corpse. We focus on the fact that it's his like electric razor.
Yes.
So the town is called Raven's Fair, right? And the sign says a quiet place to live. I mean, the town itself is set up as a joke. They drive through town and every store is an abandoned mannequin shop by the looks of it. I mean, like, there's no way. I haven't seen this many mannequins since Silent Hill. Like, and it's not meant to be seriously. I mean, even when he's pulling into his family's manor, there's a gargoyle on the gate that's either whispering or covering the sides of his mouth. I can't tell. It's got a monstrously large mouth. Its hands are very small. It's doing its best, right? Even with some of the editing.
Maybe he's just shy.
It's bashful.
Yeah.
No, it's doing like the corners, so it's either whispering or I don't know. But even the editing does.
Booing down a pitcher.
Yeah. Go back, Jamie. We don't like you here. You escaped this town. And so the editing is also very like chaotic and cheesy, where they do a lot of like zoom in and out of the eye stuff. They zoom into the town map. Like even the way the movie's like pieced together, it just reeks of like cheese. Like it's not, I mean, the name of the theater they build is called the Grand Guignol, which means marionette. So like no part of this movie.
What's Henry the Mortician's wife's name?
I don't remember.
Marion.
Marion.
Ah.
Yeah, if she was a little smaller, she'd be a marionette.
Marionette. Yeah.
But so like I said, there's so many tongue-in-cheek moments in this. I don't believe we were supposed to ever go into it super seriously. I certainly didn't, and I think most people who enjoy this movie and will find it, as I do, a pretty good movie, are not viewing it from a serious point of view from the jump.
So is it a comedy?
I think there are comedic elements. I think it's one of those things where it's not strictly comedy and it's not strictly horror. I think it is in that Saturday morning, it's a rainy day, what's on TV kind of enjoyment, like a guilty pleasure enjoyment. I think...
You're right about guilty pleasure.
Oh my.
Wrong type of guilty.
But I think the movie thinks it's really scary. I think the movie thinks it's like really scary. I think because based on the music, the lighting, Mary Shaw herself. Admit it, Mary Shaw's scary as shit. She is. She's just a really weird monster. But what's her damn name? Judith Roberts is scary as hell.
Is she the actress that played Mary Shaw? Okay.
Is really scary. I think it's Julia's mom. It's not. No. Probably. I hope. But yeah, Judith Roberts is super scary. Just she is. She just is scary looking. She has the right sharp features. She's terrifying on her own. Right. So I think the movie wants. I disagree. I think the movie thinks it's really scary. I think some of these things are tongue-in-cheek because James Wan kind of wants to fit in dumb things along the way. But overall, I think he thinks he made a pretty scary movie. I
think there are scary moments, and I'm glad you brought out like some of the creepiness factors of especially like Mary Shaw, which I mean I don't think that's even a point of contention. She's a pretty creepy, spooky.
She's a creepy old lady.
Yeah, no, there's lots of spooky imagery in this, which is why I think it tries like, you know, there is spooky imagery in it. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is actually the part where Henry is actually looking for Marion in the crawl space. You know, because they set that up early, that she likes to hide in there, because at first you're like...
That's where I'd hide from ghosts.
Yeah.
in the dark crawl space.
Of the mortuary.
They'll never find me there.
In their defense, if it's dark, maybe the ghost doesn't know if you're screaming. Maybe you can open your mouth as much as you want without
light. You had a tape recorder of you screaming.
But it was a good setup. So again,
baits the ghost.
Yeah, baits the ghost away.
I'm the judge. I have to be much more impartial than this.
It's funny. I like the idea of recording your voice and throwing it.
Yeah. Tape recorder, throw it away.
But no, so they set it up earlier with the fake out where his wife's in there because we hear the voice and we're like, oh, here comes the spookies, and then it's the wife. And then when it happens the second time, we're like, this is the real spookies. And so he goes down there, and it is very well shot, and it's very tense because the only light source is his flashlight. And we, the audience, know that's not your wife, bud. Like, you are going down there to die, but he is down there, and when he goes to touch, like, what he thinks is his wife, it's another mannequin torso. I mean, this town is just full of mannequin torsos. So even in this moment of tension, they're calling back to the absurdity of a town full of mannequins. And not the sexy ones that come alive, either. So the door closes behind him. The sound starts muting. The sound design in this movie is very good with them like dropping the sound out and just kind of like enjoying that. And It should, because it's fun. So he becomes aware the moment he realizes things are getting quiet that he knows that Mary Shaw's around him. So he turns around, like we see the hands slowly wrap around the post. Again, slow motion hands and stuff like that they're creepy. So the hand grabs the post, he looks, hand disappears, turns, there she is. He screams, she does that really awesome slow smile, rips out his tongue, acquires it to her tongue of many colors, thereby acquiring his voice.
How I love her tongue of many colors.
It's spooky, it's well shot, it was a tense moment, and they foreshadowed it earlier. So I think it is a scene successful.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded if they stuck to that monster we see in that one scene where she's a ghost and makes you scream. And I bet if there's a scene from the original screenplay that was written by Whannell while he was pacing and chain smoking in Hollywood, it's probably that scene.
I'm sorry, did you say screenplay or screamplay?
Ah!
Order the court.
And we've turned against you, old sport, and now it's puns.
No!
That's what we mostly do
Hey,
here.
it's true.
It's true,
It
yeah.
happens.
I agree. I think that scene is scary, and so that's why it's kind of weird when everyone else is sort of goofy the rest of the time.
All right, so Mr.
I
Schlender...
do think there's something to be said about needing to have kind of like flat characters, because if you had somebody who was very excitable about everything, this movie's 5 minutes.
Yeah, but not a protagonist. Though.
It's fine.
I understand
It's
Diamond
fine.
Donnie being the way he is.
You can't get everything, and you just
Why
can't
couldn't
get
we bring
everything.
Carrie Elwes back in this movie?
He's trapped in there.
They were friends.
All right, let's get a bit back on track here. Is there anything else you'd like to present to the court, Mr. Schlender?
I know the prosecution called it a little bit of cliche and derivative, but I strongly urge you to reconsider this as like horror movie comfort food. There is something kind of fun about knowing you can go into this movie, you know what you're expecting. You're not looking to like reinvent the wheel here. You're just looking to be entertained, maybe get a few spooky images even, and
yes.
keep it to a tight, because I mean the extended cut is only 90 minutes. So you keep that movie moving fast, you keep it moving spooky, and I think you move it quickly enough, spooky enough, I can forgive some of the lesser elements.
You hear me complain about the runtime?
No one is. And with that, the defense rests. And as Ryan Lewis, is it Luis Rodriguez?
Luis! How
Sorry.
dare you.
I'm white. I can't pronounce names. And as Ryan would say, case closed.
No, he
No,
would
he would
have.
say case
I know,
dismissed.
He would have said spooky.
He would have said a lot of things. But regardless, both sides have rested their case. No, I'm going to take that one again.
No, you won't.
Damn it. This is all staying in.
Oh dear, both sides have rested their cases. Now you want to take it again? That's what I thought. Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Bangs, you may begin.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, Dead Silence is what I'd like to call try-hard horror. It is trying so hard to convince you that it's as scary as it thinks it is. But it fails miserably. Maybe if it was able to focus on one of the half-dozen half-baked ideas it threw up on the screen, it could have built upon one of them, but instead it's harried and all over the place. Now, maybe that is problems with the Hollywood hack tampering, but the movie we got is post-tampering. So that's the one we got to talk about. The monster is just a hodgepodge of concepts that never gel together into something authentic or lived in. The characters are never really developed, merely introduced, and the film would rather exposition dump about its premise than the people we're supposed to fear for. And the performances, again, are as wooden as the dummies in this movie. And by dummy, I definitely mean Diamond Donnie Wahlberg.
We know you meant Donnie Wahlberg.
This
3
movie...
wooden jokes.
This movie was a waste of all of our precious time, especially Ryan's. The real Dead Silence was the one coming from the audience as soon as the credits rolled. And this is why we must cast it into the fires of movie hell for all eternity. I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schlender, please present your closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dead Silence is not a perfect movie by any means. No one here believes that, which is why that is not the scope and scale of this case. We are gathered here for one simple, salient reason: to discuss, discover, and decide if 2007's Dead Silence deserves to defend the title of being called a good movie. Let's think about that for a moment. The movie certainly has some flaws, but they are enough to strip it of its title and quality as a good movie. We are brought here under the idea that all movies are good until proven otherwise. I don't believe it has been proven otherwise. As I said in my opening, I believe it is more accurate to place Dead Silence somewhere on the spectrum of being a good movie. Now, gentlemen, in this country, our courts are the great levelers. Our courts, all movies are created equal. Now, I'm no idealist to firmly believe in the integrity of our courts and our jury system. That's no ideal to me. That is a living, working reality. Now, I am confident that you gentlemen will review without passion the evidence that you have heard, come to a decision, and restore this movie to goodness. In the name of God, do your duty. In the name of God, believe Dead Silence.
Banging the table now, you see?
I went this whole trial without banging the table, and now you're banging the table. I finally get over it. Now there's a Schlender banging the table. Hey, you leave Daryl out of this, but actually, he
he's absolutely a table banger.
I just see it.
How loud was it?
Pool table.
Oh, we'll hear it. It's gonna catch up.
Oh, you'll feel it, too.
So anyway, let me proceed with this next line.
God damn it.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. Beware the Stare of Ryan Luis Rodriguez. He had no children, only dolls. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine.
All flesh Muppets.
Very Funko.
I love it.
They're like the boy.
It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of the sin of being a bad movie and will therefore be condemned to the depths of movie hell. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.